Toga, 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 Toga. I'm not necessarily gonna lie. She's dead. Well, at least we think she is. Now, I don't usually make a lot of MHA videos. A lot of times, I don't necessarily talk about MHA entirely, unless we're talking about a character specifically, or we're looting some damn body, or we're just talking about the whole cast of female characters, and stuff like that. You know? Because I still remember when y'all was so hyped and overly searching Ochako's name onto YouTube like that, trying to find my freaking content, which is hilarious as hell, but also like, calm down, you Ochako crackheads. Like, don't get me wrong, she's thick as hell, and that's a very much a need, but like, come on now. So what's happening now in the MHA manga, at least from the recent leaks and stuff like that of what happened in the manga, Toga might be dying, or at least I think she is going to die with how things are. And if you know me, you know I like my Toga. You already know. I might not have said anything about her recently at all, but still, I never forgot about Toga. Not even for a second. And so now that I'm looking at this recent ass chapter of what they just posted, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kinda sad on one hand that this looked like being the case. But I'm also kind of like, you know what? If this is the case, then this might be just the best possibility. Because my whole thing was, I didn't want Toga to die by someone else's hand, or like to die by some ridiculous circumstance, or get murdered by somebody or something like that, right? I didn't want any of those things for her. So if she is going to pass away, and it's in a peaceful or in a way that she's doing it on her side of things in her terms, then fine. If that is the case, I still don't like that Toga's dead. I don't like that, but it is okay, right? At least she did this on her own terms and stuff like that. Her own, you know, way of going out. Fine. But not a lot of people think that. Essentially, when it comes down to things, this whole death, potentially, is now stirring up a whole bunch of conversation when it comes to the chapter itself. Like, oh, people were like, oh, so Toga's dead now? After all that talk of her talking about how she want to live an easier life and things of that sort, and now she's just, you know, going to die because of the blood transfusion that she's given to Ochako? Why? Right? Doesn't that feel a little weird? Right? Like, her whole arc is literally about her wanting to live, having an easier life, to be accepted for, you know, what she is. But now you're saying that she's just going to die, and that seemed to be the whole thing. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, Horikoshi. Or you got some people that's like, I'm gonna let Horikoshi cook because I want to see how this kind of goes. But if this ends up going in the route I think it's going, then, you know, that's kind of like a, well, I kind of figured that was going to be the case or something like that, right? And then some people are just like, you know, don't necessarily let, you know, Toga die. They want her to kind of continue to be going on because reasons and stuff, and just personal bias, which again, I totally get that. And then some people just be like, oh, they're lesbians, because that's the only pointless thing you can ever add to the conversation, you pointless ass. This is the type of conversation I've been waiting on when it comes to MHA. Things of this type of nature. Honestly, this is the type of video I've been long waiting to want to do when it comes to, you know, just anything anime YouTube related. So, when it comes down to things, do I think Toga is gonna die? Yes. I don't like Toga dying, but I think she is. The reason why I suggest and say this is mainly because of how they set it up, considering the fact that, you know, she always had like a bird analogy with her, and the bird was always dead, and, you know, that was always like Toga's main thing. But now in the recent chapter where it shows that the bird is being let go, that's also like a representation of her life going on a way to death, honestly. So it's kind of like, if Toga doesn't die here, that's probably one of the fattest, biggest cop-outs, honestly, that kind of will not necessarily sit, I would say, sit well with some people, right? I feel like if you make this triumphant thing of Toga literally sacrificing her own blood and pouring it into, you know, Ochako, I feel like that's a bit weird that you didn't necessarily have her die. Now, the only possible way I can think of where Toga maybe can sort of be it can be a cop-out living situation, is that because Toga is drinking Ochako's blood to do the blood transfusion, the only possible way I can think of that working out is that because she was drinking some Ochako's blood, somehow she has just the little tiniest bit of blood in her to stay alive for some reason, right? And then maybe once Toga like gets taken into custody, they try to help her live and shit, and they probably put some blood in her, and that's a way, right? Maybe that's a possible way. I don't know how they would do that, but maybe that's a possible way of how that can go. If it does happen to be that route, and if it does go down that way, then that's, I guess, a possible way of an excuse to keep her alive. Which, again, like I said, I don't want Toga to die, but that's like an excuse. But then again, you have to think about what Toga said in that recent chapter, where she was saying that basically, you know, I don't want to necessarily get arrested, and, you know, even if it's on Ochako's whole hero stick and all that type of thing in those terms, I'm gonna do this my damn way. So again, it's still pointing towards death flags, right? So I don't necessarily see a proper reason to give her life at the end of everything, at least from what it's trying to set up, right? It seems like Horikoshi is like, I'm putting my foot down this one, Toga is going to die. At least that's what it seems like to me, right? Again, because I feel like if you just don't do the deed of killing Toga, it feels like this whole thing is just like the most cop-out thing ever, right? Like, it makes sense for characters like Ochako and, you know, Bakugo to keep on living, even though we haven't seen Bakugo in damn near 5 years now. But when it comes down to things, it makes sense for Bakugo to keep living because obviously he's one of the main characters. Why the hell would you do that? Why would you kill him off? That doesn't make any kind of sense. So that makes sense for him to keep on living, obviously. I mean, and now with Toga, she is a big involved character, but she's also side character, right? She's not like a character that you often see with the main character a lot of the time, or with the main cast a lot of the time, outside of like antagonist moments, right? So it would make sense that Toga would be able to die, and that's just how she goes out, honestly. Yes, I can understand the argument where people are like, well, she talked about living on her own terms and things like that, and yes, I do agree. That is a bit like, yeah, she did say she wanted to live on her own terms and stuff like that. But what if it's not this life that's meant for her, but the next one that's coming after, right? You have to kind of consider that as an option, though, right? Oftentimes, characters usually be talking about, oh, I'll see you in the next life. Maybe this is what Toga maybe not had exactly in mind, but maybe this is what she has to, you know, kind of do to fulfill the character role for her. And I get it, right? Again, I don't want to see I don't want to see Toga dying. Like, I get it. I get the whole complaints. No one understands it more than me. Toga, at the end of the day, is a fine, big booty, not so yandere, because she has more complex feelings and more complicated story with her than any yandere that has ever existed. Just great overall character. She is just wonderful to the T. Literally, that's in her name. But when it comes down to things, if I were to say which route I would go, if this was my story and if I was writing it, I'd have Toga die. I don't want Toga to die, but I would have her die. Mainly because it would fit the character in a way that's not too out of pocket of the character, right? Because obviously she done a lot of bad things. She's looking over the shit that she's caused recently. She's looking at literally the person that she loves in front of her because of that quirk and how that makes her, you know, like the blood and people and stuff like that. And the thing is, when it comes down to it, why not have her do this? Because this sort of somewhat fits the character. If she loves someone, and she loves them to this point, honestly, one of the things that you can do out of that love for real is let things go, honestly, right? Let that be like a thing that kind of has to be let go in a weird way, right? And plus, if we're being honest too, I feel like if she decides to keep on living, it would just cause her nothing more than just pain, honestly. Especially after the arrest and people kind of understand, who Toga is and stuff like that. I feel like it would cause nothing more than just straight up pain and suffering and stuff. Because even, and if you could probably think about it like this too, with her taking the blood of twice and using that shit for, the whole Clone Wars and everything that recently happened, it's like when she's trying to preserve life or preserve someone's legacy in some shape or form in a weird way, it just caused her nothing more than just straight up pain. It caused her way more pain than it should. And when it comes down to things, if that's all that Toga has and can be, and her quirk allows her to be, just causing pain to others by living, and she now realizes that she doesn't want that, at least for the people that she really care for, then it's like maybe she should be better off dead. It's just a thought. Here's also my thing when it comes to people reading this whole chapter and stuff. The previous chapter, people were pissed off that Ochako didn't kill Toga, mainly, or take her out at least, mainly because she's a villain. She killed a whole bunch of people and all that type of stuff and did a whole bunch of troubling things for the heroes. So why not kill her? You must forget what series this is. This is My Hero Academia. Do you not know what heroes do? They're meant to save people. In this universe, they're meant to save everyone. Even try to save the villain if they can. They are literally like Batman. They are literally trying to capture the Joker over and over again. Even though, yes, he should be dead, and honestly, he's way more, far gone than Toga could ever be. But when it comes down to things, the whole point is we have to save everybody, even when it comes to the villains. Not because we want them to be good people exactly, or they should be having like a redemption arc or something, but show mercy to your villains as well, and that's kind of like the sort of somewhat thing that's My Hero always been doing. Even with Shigaraki right now, Izuku still wants to save Shigaraki, or did we just forget all that shit, right? Even probably All Might, in some shape and form, wanted to try to, do something for All For One, because he's still alive. If that was the case of killing, the villain characters, and that was what we're going to do, then, Hawks would probably kill way more people, honestly, instead of just killing the one twice, Mirako would have killed Shigaraki, and then that would have been a thing. But then would you know what the public perception of what that would have been in that world? Oh, if heroes can just kill villains, then there's gonna be a crazy ass power balance fight to be had there, and things like that, right? And that's something that the show kind of considers. And honestly, with what the heroes are doing, they do have a point of what they're doing, right? They have a point of trying to save everybody instead of just killing the villain, because, someone with a big superpower like that just murking villains like it ain't nothing because they did something wrong. Does that mean if little Johnny go out to the store and, stole like a piece of candy or something, does that mean Deku should just punch him in the face and blow his head off? I don't think that's how that shit should go, obviously. So, no, Ochako did the right thing by not trying to get Toga killed, honestly. And if Toga wants to take her life by transfusing the blood into, Ochako, then that's her call to make. That's what it is. At least at that point, it's not necessarily Ochako's call, but it's Toga's, and that's the point and choice of what she has made here. But now with this recent chapter, you have people talk about, oh, Toga shouldn't die because her whole arc was to live, even though in the last chapter y'all was telling her to kill her? Y'all ain't shit, honestly. Y'all about the most foldable people I ever seen on Twitter. But when it comes down to things, at the end of all this, I do feel like Toga will die. I do feel like that is her final gift to Ochako and to the show, honestly. Which, again, like I said, really does suck, because I do love me some Toga. I really do. I will forever be a Toga fan, 100%. But when it comes down to things, I do feel like that's what's going to happen to her, right? She is going to die. She is going to die on her own terms. She already said she wasn't going to get arrested, and I already had a feeling that if she wasn't going to die, she would probably just do the right thing, and then somehow, dip off somewhere and go into hiding and disguising herself, and not necessarily, doing the same amount of bad things that she used to do, right? So that's what I always felt like she would do, but it feels like this really might be just the straight up end for Toga, if I'm being honest with you. So if this is the end, then damn, did she had a really good run, and by far she was probably the best character in the entire show. Like, I'm just gonna be honest with you, especially out of the female cast, she might just be. Ochako is like right behind that, because definitely she's not necessarily the more, you know, geeky ass girl that she used to be like in the beginning, because now she's like super freaking mature and knows how to be serious when shit is serious, right? Toga was also sort of that kind of way, you know, being the more simpish lady of, you know, the villains and stuff like that, and have her own reasons of why. But when it comes down to things, now she's like serious as well, but also still hasn't, I guess, thrown away that childlike feeling of what she had, but still being mature of what she's doing, even to her death potentially. So, you know, you can't necessarily say that none of the characters really have changed at all, because they absolutely have changed. Deku has 100% changed too, right? Like, you see how mature this man is and how he's doing right now. 100% mature and changed up. So again, I do think Toga is going to die full-blown death, honestly. I do think that is going to be the case, and that would be sweet on her, right? That would be sweet. And you know, that just kind of, and honestly, I'm also kind of glad that at least again she didn't go out in a violent ass way or in a trash this character type of way, because people give a shit about Toga 100%, and I'm just happy that she at least found some type of solace and peace at the end of her life, if this is the case. If it's not the case, then I feel like Horikoshi made a great freaking mistake, honestly. Let Toga die, right? Let her die. To be honest with you, she doesn't deserve death. Dabi does, and a lot of other people kind of do. But of all the characters, Toga, while you could say she deserves death, but I wouldn't say as hard as every other villain that has come through. So that's essentially, again, all I have for you for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow me on the socials, and if you like this on this channel, Patreon is available as well. Also, if you haven't seen the previous video, please do, because that's a serious video, and you know, there's just a lot going on with that. And when it comes down to things, I just do need a lot of help. And again, share that video as well, as much as you possibly can. And until then, it's your boy Jay, signing off. Have a blessed day.